Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here, and now, curtain up on today's episode. Welcome to our special Thanksgiving Day episode of the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Now, as we officially kick off the holiday season, we have a very special holiday concert that we're chatting about today, Chicago's annual NF Hope fundraiser concert. NF stands for Neurofibromatosis, one of the most common genetic disorders of the nervous system in the United States. NF causes tumors to form on the nerves anywhere in the body at any time. This progressive disorder affects all races, all ethnic groups, and both sexes equally. Neurofibromatosis affects more than 120,000 Americans, one of whom is Emma Leibow, daughter of entertainment couple Jeff and Melody Leibow. When Emma was diagnosed with NF as a toddler, Jeff and Melody sprang to action the way entertainers know best. They produced NF Hope, a fundraiser concert in their hometown of Las Vegas to support NF research funding and the NF Network, which provides advocacy and support for NF families. The concert has since grown to stages in both New York and Chicago, with this year's Chicago concert being the 6th one in a row. So my guest today is my good friend Jeff Leibow, and we chat about the upcoming concert and why this year's fundraising goal is more vital than ever. This year's one-night-only NF Hope concert will be Sunday, December 7th at 3 p.m. at the Madison Street Theater in Oak Park. There's also an online auction of exclusive experiences that's going to be offered. So if you would like your tickets or to view the online auction, please visit nfhope.org, the link for which is also in our show notes. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Jeff Leibow. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, pal?
Good to see you.
You too, my friend. Thanks for joining me here on the podcast. So listen, we start off every podcast the exact same way, and that is to please tell our listeners a little bit about where you grew up, a little bit about your background, a little bit about your training, preferably in that order, and then finish up, please, with your first theater experience. So I hand it off to you.
All right. I actually grew up in Santa Monica, California. I was probably the only kid in Santa Monica that didn't surf. But I grew up as a beach kid, and honestly, theater was never a thought for me. But what I really wanted to be is I always wanted to be a professional musician. So I played the oboe for years and had dreams of being a principal oboist in the New York Philharmonic and all of that. So that's kind of where I focused all my energy on early, growing up. Is I loved music more than anything. So the way I ended up sort of getting some training in theater was honestly an accident. I had a friend who I was going to audition just for the hell of it for the high school production of Sound of Music. And then my girlfriend at the time told me that she had never heard me sing and she was going to sit in the front row, so I chickened out. So it was my junior year of college, UC Davis, and a friend of mine said, "Come on, we're going to an audition." I didn't even know what we were auditioning for. She said, "Grab some dance clothes." It was Chorus Line.
Wow, talk about trial by fire. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But it kind of that changed the trajectory of things. And before I knew it, maybe 5 or 6 years later, not even 3 or 4 years later, I was in New York, and my training all came from a school called AMDA.
Oh, no way! I didn't know it was AMDA.
It was a much smaller school than it is now. I think in New York there were a total of 400 students.
Wow.
And LA was just barely getting started. So it was a much smaller school, but it was all I needed. I needed to sort of get something to get me to New York. And it provided some amazing training and connecting with people that continue to help me throughout the years. And that's kind of what landed me in theater. Although I do have to say that, my career has taken a million tangents along the way.
Right. Sure.
And when my dad convinced me that being a musician wasn't actually a smart thing to do, that I should choose something, what was the word?
Practical?
Yeah, practical. I think that was actually, that's good. There you go, the word.
Yeah.
I saw this movie, this Donald Sutherland movie about the very first artificial heart, and I thought that's what I want to do. I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. So when I went to college, I was actually on my way to try to go to medical school and become a cardiothoracic surgeon. That was the second dream. The musical theater turned into the third one. And we'll get a chance to talk about the fourth one. I mean, I've been blessed, but it's been a very curvy road. So as far as my first theatrical experience, so in truth, I think when I was about 4 years old, my mom might have put me in a summer camp where I said a line in a show. But since I don't remember that,
Sure.
I honestly, my very first theatrical experience was this. So my friend knocks on my door, literally the night of the audition, and says, "Come to this audition with me." She knew the story of me chickening out in high school, so she said, "Come on," and it was a production of A Chorus Line. And I couldn't have been wider-eyed, more wide-eyed than I was.
Yeah.
Funny enough, though, growing up, we did have musicals playing in our house, and one of my mom's favorite was Chorus Line. So I knew pretty much every word.
Oh my gosh!
So I walked into the audition, and I guess from what I've been told, I walked in there, and I was so wide-eyed. They thought, this guy has to be Mark. If he can do anything, he's Mark, because that's the role of Mark. He's this wide-eyed kid who's, as green can be, and I literally was that. And somehow I convinced them that my absolutely horrible excuse for dancing, was enough to match the fact that I could sing a little bit. Because in truth, I had never really sung anywhere in the shower or the car before then.
Wow.
And that's kind of what launched it, and it like with every theater person, that was what bit me with the theater bug, and I was off and running from there.
Now I have to tell you that we're up to, I think, 23 episodes or something at this point of the podcast, and everyone's first theater experience, most everyone's theater experiences have either been seeing or being in a production of Sound of Music, Annie, Cats, or there's a fourth one, but they've all come back to these same early memories because I guess within a certain generation, or even back a couple of generations, I mean, Sound of Music's been around for over 60 years. So that's a lot of people's first memory, even whether seeing it live on stage or being a part of it. So it's just interesting that we always keep circling back to these core memories that sort of universal for everybody, the same shows. And it's funny, as well as you and I know each other, we've never discussed our personal backgrounds. I never knew any of this about you. So this is really sort of fun for me.
We're always performing, and we're never really having a chance to talk. So this is perfect.
You must now have some dance ability, because when you and I met, for our listeners who don't know, we met during the Vegas production of Jersey Boys. Yeah. And I was backstage one day, and I was sort of doing some tap steps, and you were like, "Oh, you're a tapper too?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So you're a tapper. And then you had said to me, "Oh, you know who Sarah's grandmother was," and Sarah. So we're talking about Sarah Lowe, whose grandmother was, of course, the amazing Ruby Keeler. And I was like, "No, I had no idea." And then I realized that I had met Sarah earlier in my Jersey Boys career. But so you clearly got some dance training when you were in AMDA, became a tapper and all other types of dance as well. So you made up for it after your little Chorus Line.
I think I did. I don't know that I would still end up in a production of Chorus Line now professionally, but I would certainly love to watch it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a great show. Tell us a little bit about some of the bigger shows that brought you into the professional theater. You did the world premiere of Memphis when it first came out. So tell us a little bit about that journey, because again, until you gave me your little bio on the intake form, it was something I had no idea about. So let's think about that.
I had taken a little hiatus from acting. So I was in New York for a while, and then because of a family emergency, I ended up in the Bay Area of California. And I had just started getting back into theater when I met my wife. And so we started auditioning for things together, and we got connected with a theater in Bay Area called TheaterWorks. And they were known for doing a lot of new works. Andrew Lippa was constantly there showing off something new. I knew Stephen Aramis from school, but I got to see him again there. Anyway, so they said, "Look, we're going to do this world premiere along with North Shore of a show called Memphis." And so I lined up an audition like I always did, and I ended up talk about dancing. I ended up in the ensemble for the show, and God, it was an amazing experience. The director changed hands when it got to Broadway, but it was, I mean, most of the people that we were there with at that point, including some of the Bay Area folks like James Eigelhart, who I came up in Bay Area theater with,
Sure.
sort of joined that show right there in that TheaterWorks production, and then took it on to Broadway eventually.
How did you meet Melody? I don't know that I ever heard the story either.
How long is this podcast?
As long as you want it to be. We only edit out the bad stuff, not the nice stuff like this.
So the funny thing is I had moved back from New York, and I had gotten married, and my wife and I were, in tough patch. So she was going to go off and she was going to go on tour. And she said, "Look, you're going to be bored sitting around and watching television, and so just go audition. There's a production of 42nd Street. You should go. You'd get Billy, and no problem, and you'd have fun. And I hear that there's this girl that they're looking at for Peggy, who is pretty good. And so I think it's not like it's going to be a horrible production. Go enjoy yourself." So I was literally in my pajamas, and I got up and grabbed my tap shoes, changed into something I could dance and sing in, and I went and ended up landing the role. On September 11th, life changed for a lot of people. Right. And my wife said, "Look, I think we've been unhappy. Let's go our separate ways." And Melody was going through the same exact thing, and she was our Peggy. And so we kind of got to know each other as friends through the camaraderie of our shared experience.
Sure.
We ended up kind of feeling a little spark. And that was what created the funny thing is that I'd never intended on auditioning for this show. And she is not a tapper. And her friend said, "Look, come to this audition. I'll teach you how to tap. I'll teach you the opening number for 42nd Street." And she ended up getting Peggy. And I was Billy. And, it took about a million things to line us up at the same place. But there's something that many in the Jewish community know as beshert. And that was definitely one of those besherts meant to be moments. And here we are, just celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary.
Okay, so it's something I don't know that I ever shared with you. My wife and I also met on a production of 42nd Street. And it's the same. Yeah, and sort of a similar, the universe aligned itself just perfectly situation. So I had gone out to do the European tour, and I was in all over Germany, Munich, Mannheim, and Berlin. And then the show effectively closed. And then I had gotten word, I was doing another show, and I got a phone call from a buddy of mine saying, "Hey, the tour's going back out to Zurich. Make sure you get yourself on that contract." So I called the dance captain. It worked out that I was able to go back to Zurich, Switzerland. And that was the leg that my wife joined. She wasn't in the first leg. And then from there, amazing. We got close as well, and had a little side trip as platonic friends, and came back. And then we discovered, hey, there was this little spark there. So yeah. And we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. Thanks, Todd. I was going to ask is where the production of 42nd Street was. What
it was a little community theater in Pleasanton, California, which is the East Bay area. If I remember right, it was Pleasanton Playhouse, which I don't think exists anymore, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and that was the only time you and Melody ever worked together? Was on that show?
That was the first time we worked together.
Oh, okay.
We did actually.
My wife and I never worked together again ever.
Oh,
not by choice. Just it never worked out that way.
I've never actually stopped to think about how many, but I'm sure at least 5 or 6. As a matter of fact,
oh wow!
The day after I proposed to Melody, we found out that we had landed a production of Last 5 Years together.
Oh my God! How great!
And so we got to do that.
Show.
We started rehearsals like 2 weeks after we got engaged.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And were you both the principals, or were you both Jamie?
No, we were both. Yeah. And that was at a small theater in the Bay Area, that had a couple of guest artist contracts.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So great. Well, of course, we're both alumni of Jersey Boys, again, which is how we met. And everyone's journey getting to grab that brass ring to be in that show was different, complicated, and sometimes very similar, but always long and arduous. So I'd love to hear your journey about how you wound up becoming part of the Jersey Boys family.
I think I was a little bit blessed in that my journey was so much shorter than many.
Okay.
We went. As a matter of fact, Melody and I were about to move back to New York. We had just gone for 6 weeks so I could introduce her to the audition season in New York. And or the stock audition season, I should say. And we come back and we were literally starting to think, okay, where are we going to live? Let's start packing up. And Melody's mom said, hey, I got tickets for Jersey Boys at this current theater in San Francisco. It's the first national tour. Come see it. So we graciously accepted, and we all went to the show. I knew nothing about the show, and I have full disclosure here. I know I might make some enemies, but it was when you could go into Tower Records, and they had the listening stations, and one of the listening stations had Jersey Boys, and I thought, well, this is just Four Seasons music. I mean, it's great music, but I hated jukebox musicals. I thought they were such a waste of what could be for Broadway. And so I kind of just pushed it aside, and I didn't care about Jersey Boys. Everybody was freaking out about it. I had no idea why, because I thought it's just another jukebox musical. So I had no intention necessarily of seeing the show. And when we were in New York, I met some folks that were some friends auditioning for it at one of the studios there. And so we came back, and I thought, okay, I'll just go see the show. 3 minutes. I kid you not. Like the opening monologue for the Tommy as he starts the show, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to. I was so wrong about this. Like this is an amazing show, and so you start playing that game. You look at the show and say, well, gee, what role could I be? And in truth, I wanted to audition for Frankie. So the first thing I did was lie in my resume about how short I was.
Unlike guys like me who try and lie and make ourselves taller.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And so it just so happened that a friend of ours who's a voice teacher in the Bay Area knew Mary Sugarman, who was at Tara Rubin, and eventually as everybody knows, probably took over for the casting for Jersey Boys. And so he sent her a note and said, she'll be able to set you up with an agent call in Las Vegas. And so Melody and I, we got the side sent to us. We started rehearsing, and we went out to Vegas. They had given me Tommy, Nick, Norm, a couple of other roles to read. Yeah. And as soon as I walked in the room, I think it was 5 or 6 roles they had asked me to read. As soon as I walked in the room, they looked at me and they said, give us back everything but Tommy, everything but Nick and Norm. And so I started reading. So I got through the audition in Vegas. It was the agent call. And Melody was actually still in the room auditioning, and they asked her to hold on. They came out and invited me to L.A. For the next call, which was about 2 weeks later. So 2 weeks later, I was in L.A., and that's the first time that I had met Des, and the first time I'd ever met one of the Four Seasons. Bob was there. And that was the first time I met Sergio too. So I mean, the entire creative team was there, and as well as Bob and some of the folks from Tara Rubin. Yeah. And I kind of did my spiel again, and I was the the good auditioner, and got home to my dad's house and sent a note to Mary and saying thank you so much for the opportunity. I had a great time, and in 2 minutes she replied and said, hold this date. We're going to invite you to come to New York in a couple months. And so I did. So every single day of that 2 months, Melody probably never wants to hear the song Dream Lover again, because every single day I would play it on guitar ad nauseum. We read through the scene so many times that Melody literally could do my audition. She used to go around the house just for fun of it and do all the Nick monologues because she knew them so well. So I went out to New York, and I went to the final call where it was literally everybody in the room. I think there were 25 people behind the table, including, Bob and Frankie. And Frankie decided to bring his son to that audition, which was not nerve-wracking at all.
No.
And so I kind of did the same thing, only it was a much bigger crowd at this audition. And I stepped out, and I went back to my hotel and sent a note to Mary again and said, thanks so much. I'm headed off on a plane tomorrow morning. I look forward to hearing from you. Next day, my bags are packed. I'm rolling down the hallway to go meet the car out front, and she calls me and says, "Don't leave New York." So I literally go down to the car and say, "I'm so sorry, I've got to cancel." I went back up to my room, which I had to leave, so they had to get me a hotel room. I had to figure
Yeah,
everything
they
out,
did.
get to a hotel. And 2 days later, I was in a room with just Rick Ellis and Marshall Brickman, the writers of the show, Mary Sugarman and Des McAnuff, the director. And Mary pulled me aside and she said, actually, she called me and she said, "You're going to come in an hour early. I'm going to work with you." So I had a working session with the agent, which is nothing I'd ever experienced before. I mean,
Wow.
I didn't know if I was dreaming or if I should consider it a compliment. Probably both would have been the right answer. And so I worked with her and she said, "Look, it's between you and there's a guy who's covering the role of Nick in San Francisco. And so we'll call you in when it's time." So I called in. They called me in. I did my thing. Des and especially Rick were very complimentary. And I walked out the door. And as I'm walking out the door, starting to pack up my bag, I realized, oh my God, my resume still says I'm 5'8". I'm going to be too short for Nick. So I burst back into the room like an absolute idiot. And I said, "Hold on, I think I made a mistake on my resume. I'll get you a new one with the right height. It was a typo. I says I'm too short." Because I was so worried that it got down this far and I was going to be too short for Nick. They're going to think, no, we can't have somebody that's shorter than the Frankie.
That is hysterical.
So 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Palo Alto with my wife, doing some work, and I get a call. I thought it was my dad because he was out of town in Europe and she was in London casting the London production. And I said, "Hey, Dad." She said, "This isn't your dad." And then she told me I got it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was about 2.5 months of auditioning, and that was about it.
Wow. Compared to 2.5 years.
Yeah, I know. And you are probably more the norm than not.
Oh yeah. I guarantee you I am. So that is, well, I'm glad to know that they knew a good thing when they saw it and they didn't want you to they didn't want you to leave New York. They gave you that extra time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? It's a big feather in their cap because they realized early on the benefit of finding people who they really wanted and grooming them in the right way to really put the finer points on some things. Like that's why they started the Frankie Camp, right? And I was the first class of Frankie Camp, and they got 4 Frankies out of that first one. Me, Quarter Simmons, John Michael Diaz, and Stephen Goldsmith. I mean, and it was the gift that keeps on giving for all of us. It's still amazing, but they knew early on how to really get the best out of people. So I vote you, my friend.
Count my blessings. It's 7 years and 2,700 performances in Nick. I think it was awesome.
Yeah. Now, of course, after 7 years in Vegas, you did make the decision to step away to work on other efforts, which is, of course, why we're talking here today about the Chicago NF Hope concert. This will be the 6th year for Chicago's NF Hope concert. Give our listeners, please, a little history about what NF is, about the history about the concerts, why it's obviously so near and dear to you as well.
Sure. So it was actually our just the second year in Vegas that my daughter was, the second year, my daughter was born, and she was born with a neurological disorder called neurofibromatosis, or NF. We'd never heard of it before, and we eventually connected with a national organization, and they asked what we could do, and so we're performers, so we had this Gershwin-esque idea of putting on a show in a barn. Our barn happened to be the Las Vegas Hilton, where Elvis made his name, but it's still, it was the first year was an absolute flop. But, we had created this thing called the NF Hope Concert. And somebody came up to us after the concert that day and said, "When's the next one?" And I hadn't even necessarily thought about having another one. But I thought, oh, I guess we should do another one. And it just kept going and going. And, the goal for us was just to make sure that people knew what it was. When Emma was diagnosed, my daughter, we had never heard the word before. Everybody we knew had never heard the word before. And we thought, if there's one thing we can do, we want to make sure that when a new family faces this, they at least know what it is, or that somebody they know knows what it is, so they don't feel alone. Because it's rare disease is very much about, it feels like you're on an island. And it's already a challenge enough, but to feel alone on top of it just makes it all that more challenging. But it turns out that, we were not only raising awareness, but we were actually raising funds. And so we've been now doing this for 15 years. We've raised over $2 million. We just celebrated our 15th event in Las Vegas. And a handful of years in, we said, we should be doing this in Chicago because the organization we do this for, NF Network, is based out of Wheaton, Illinois. And so we started doing it in Chicago, and we got a couple in Chicago before COVID hit, and then we went virtual, and then, we were back to live. And so here we are this year. It's technically, I guess, our 8th concert, but it's our 6th live event in Chicago, in the Chicago area. And
Sure.
Thanks to friends like you who have graced our stage along with 4 C notes and even without. Just like with the concerts we've done in New York and Chicago and Las Vegas, I think by the time we get to the end of this year, we'll have done 27 NF Hope concerts.
Amazing.
It's continued to help. And it's nice because there's really not a whole lot we can do for Emma. So this is the thing we do.
Give our listeners a little context about why the financial challenges for NF are even greater this year, given the current administration and the drastic cut in funding that you've unfortunately been on the receiving end of, or rather not been on the receiving end
Right.
of, I should say.
So some of the most important research that happens in the NF research community is funded out of a defense program called the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, or more specifically, NF Research Program. And 29 years ago, or 30 years ago now, the executive director of the national organization and another woman from New York went to D.C. and said, look, we need to get federal funding. And they were able to get it. And for 29 straight years, they were able to get it. And I'm blessed to say that for 14 of those years, I've been able to join them on the Hill every year to help speak to members of the House and Senate to get them to essentially sign a letter saying that we are in support of this, which gives it a lot more power on the floor of the House and the Senate to get support. And so over the years, that defense program has funded $452 million worth of NF research.
Unbelievable.
Which has brought us many breakthroughs, but most importantly, 2 FDA-approved drugs were partially funded, or the processes were funded, and they exist because of this program. So last year, or this year, what year is it? Earlier this year, we went to D.C. In preps for getting funding for 26. And last year, we went to get funding for this year. All was well. The House and the Senate both agreed they wanted to fund it. And because of the new administration, they came in and said, we're going to put a hold on this budget, which is typical for a new administration. In the last maybe 4 or 5 administrations, most new administrations like to put their stamp on the budget, something that is specific to them and something that's important to them.
Right.
So it wasn't a surprise that happened. What was a surprise was that they decided for the very first time, potentially in history, I'll have to look that up, that this continuing resolution, which is usually just a stopgap before an actual bill is signed,
Right.
they said, we're going to make it go all year long. And the result of that is that the department heads, in this case, the director of the Department of Defense said, great, well, that means that I get to pull money from different pots to fund the things that I think are important. And one of the pots that got pulled was the NF research program. So it's $25 million of NF research that didn't get funded this year, which is devastating, truly devastating. Most importantly, a piece of the research, a piece of that money covers something called the Clinical Trials Consortium. One of the challenges with rare diseases is that you have to have a large enough patient population to do the clinical trial. So this Clinical Trials Consortium is something that was created for this NF research program, and it has become an industry gold standard because it allows 26 sites around the country to gather NF families or potential patients from those communities and guarantee there's going to be a large enough patient population to fill almost any clinical trial that needs to be filled.
I see.
That lost funding too. So the potential here is that there are some very important clinical trials that are sort of on the cusp right now. And without that funding, especially if that then happens this coming year, we're in trouble. So we at NF Network really decided that we wanted to sort of change the way that we do things. We'll continue to do our advocacy work because it's helped result in this $452 million. But we have to do something else.
So what is the fundraising goal for this year's concert?
Well, it's a little different. So a couple of years ago, NF Network created something called Project Dream, which is essentially their way of funding research directly. and we're mirroring what is happening in the Army project because it's so successful. Funding sort of high risk, high reward type of research, and so we decided that we wanted to do the same thing. It was a slow start because it's hard to fund that, but we've provided 3 $50,000 seed grants. And when everything hit the fan in March, I said, let me take over Project Dream and let me sort of at least be the chair of the committee that runs this. And I said, we're going to set a goal of raising $250,000 for the year, for the fiscal year, starting in October, to fund 4 projects, not just 2, but 4, and continue this so that we can start really being a player in funding NF research. So for the concerts this year, it was my goal that before we got to the end of December, that we were going to fund 2 of them. And I'm really excited to say that in Vegas, we actually got $60,000 of the $100,000. So
incredible.
So in Chicago, our goal is to finish it off. We're trying to raise an additional $40,000 so that we can fund 2 research projects next year.
Well, I'm really excited about the concert coming up. Unfortunately, I can't be there this year, but what can audiences expect at this year's concert? It's always been a great time, chock full of really great local talent. Yeah. So give us a little idea of what they can look forward to.
Honestly, Chicago is special in that it's all really local. I mean, we're not getting big names in here necessarily. We're getting a lot of local talent, and that's going to happen again this year. So I actually have met 3 new artists that I've never worked with before, and I'm going to mess up their names. I'm butcher it. Concetta Rosa is a musical theater actress. She's a MFA graduate from Northwestern. And I just met Jess Van, who is this really cool sort of pop jazz artist. That one of our committee members said, hey, I know this girl who can sing. She can sing. And so I just spoke to her yesterday, and she just committed yesterday to the concert. So we've got a lot of amazing local talent. And then along with myself, the hosts will include Dan Tater, who's a longtime friend, and I know that you know him well as well. And he's helped out before, so it'll be a nice familiar face for everybody to see up hosting. And we have some really special award recipients this year, including Rosemary Anderson, who was one of the very first to sort of start these NF regional organizations around the country, and has been running the Michigan organization and overseeing it. So we've got a lot of amazing local talent. And then along with myself, the hosts will include Dan Tater, who's a longtime friend, and I know that you know him well as well. And he's helped out before, so it'll be a nice familiar face for everybody to see up hosting. And we have some really special award recipients this year, including Rosemary Anderson, who was one of the very first to sort of start these NF regional organizations around the country, and has been running the Michigan organization and overseeing it and continuing to help with it even after retirement for decades. And she also happens to be the mother of Gillian Anderson, the actress.
Wow. Cool.
So her other daughter Zoe is the one that helped us meet Jess Van, and we're hoping that Gillian will send a nice note and something that we can share at the concert. But it's really special because she's done an enormous amount of work in her decades working on NF to help the community. So it's fun that we're going to get to honor her on top of the amazing entertainment that day.
Also, are you going to be doing the online auction still?
We are. As a matter of fact, the online auction will go live that Monday. Is that the 1st? I think it's...
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so Monday the 1st of December, the auction will go live, and you can hop online. The easiest access to it is to go to nfhope.org, and there's links to buying tickets as well as the auction for the Chicago concert. And and you can also people, if they want to go on there, and they can look at auction items, or they can just donate. And if they want, they can also watch the concert virtually.
Oh, Good. And they can get tickets to the live stream from there as well?
All of the links are on the auction site, yes.
Now, I also need to ask, last year you and I recorded a Christmas single, I should say. Is that going to be available for download again this year with all proceeds going to NF Hope?
It is. And as a matter of fact, it's already on the auction site, but
amazing.
It just is also been added to our press release that just went out. So I'm hoping that in addition to getting people to see the show, that they get a chance to grab our holiday song, enjoy it for the holidays, and help NF at the same time.
Awesome. Now, we'd have to make sure people know the day, the time, when and where, all the good information.
Yep. The concert is on Sunday, December 7th at 3 p.m. It's at the Madison Street Theater in Oak Park, Illinois. And you can go on to nfhope.org. It'll give you a link to directly to the ticket site on the Madison Street Theater site, or you can also just go to the Madison Street Theater and take a look. It's right there listed on December 7th.
And of course, we'll have a link to the NF Hope site for tickets in our show notes. So if you're listening, click the link at the bottom right there. Before I wrap up, Jeff, anything else you want to add?
No, I gotta admit, I've watched you build this podcast. Really, really happy for you, and I hope it doesn't sound patronizing, but very proud of all this work you're doing. So, and it's an honor to be a part of it. So, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, pal. It's my honor to have you here and to really get the word out about the concert. It's always been my honor and pleasure to be a part of it the last several years. I'm sad that I can't be a part this year. So this is going to be released on Thanksgiving. So if you're all listening out there, happy Thanksgiving. Please go support NF Hope. If you can't be there in person, live stream it and give them all the support and throw as much money as you can at them as well.
Great.
This time of year. Jeff, thanks, pal, for being here.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.